try over again. Okay. What I was trying to say is that the building sector is crucial for achieving EU's energy and environmental goals. It's important to have this EPBD to achieve highly efficient and decarbonized building stock. And the energy performance rules are incorporated in national building codes. The trend is that we are moving from passive houses to plus houses and to zero emission buildings and neighborhoods. At the same time, we are trying to achieve safe, resilient, and sustainable cities and communities. We are living in a more dense way. We are living near public transportation and main roads to ease the way we can travel from home to work. Our homes are becoming urban homes, more compact, more at risk for another air quality and some noise close to these main roads and transportation lines. Our buildings are becoming taller and more compact, and at the same time, our indoor air quality is under pressure. Our homes are mainly apartment buildings for new residential buildings. Our homes are also getting smaller. The 2-room apartment and 3-room apartment and studio apartments are still there, but they have a decreasing number of square meters. Everything is changing a little bit. At the same time, we see that we want more flexibility. We need another type of layout of our apartments, and we also try out new ways of layout, like sharing part of the apartment, having one room, having apartments for divorced families, and all the new ways of living. I want to tell you a little bit about the Scandinavian way of living. Of course, you all know we live in a cold climate, and we like to stay at home, and we are a lot of the time inside, at least in the winter time. Because of this cold climate, we also have very well insulated buildings. Also, of course, partly of the EPBD. We have well insulated buildings, nearly passive house level. We have low infiltration, airtight houses, and balanced ventilation is the common way of doing the ventilation in our homes. Heat recovery with high efficient heat recovery as well. We don't use cooling at the moment, even if that is up for discussion. We only use shading. One thing that's also a little bit challenging for us is there is no storage room for technical equipment in our new apartments. But we do have a layout of our apartment that goes in direction of open plan, an open living room with the kitchen and living room attached. We do introduce fresh air, supply air into bedrooms and living room, and then we have the extract air from kitchen and bathrooms and toilets. The requirements in the different Scandinavian countries are a little bit different, but still similar. We have requirements that says we need a certain amount of air per square meter. when we are present, and a little bit lower is allowed if you are away for a longer time. We want 26 cubic meter per hour per person in the bedrooms. But you also have to take into account the need for extract air from kitchen, bathroom, and toilets. And in Norway, we do have both basic ventilation rates and forced ventilation rates, while in Denmark, they have more fixed rates. So one of the challenges that we are facing is that these requirements for extract air is the same even if the apartment is large or if the apartment is small. So we can end up with a little bit high ventilation rates for the smallest apartments. Also, when talking about ventilation systems and balanced ventilation systems, we in Scandinavian countries refer to centralized system as a system connecting more apartments to the same air handling unit. This can be placed in the basement or in the attic. And when we refer to decentralized systems, we mean one air handling unit per apartment placed in the apartment, for instance, in the ceiling by the hallway. So it's not what you sometimes in the more southern countries refer to as decentralized and centralized, and we are not using ventilation systems located in the facade. What type of system is the most common one? We see from the market in Norway that a lot of new buildings have decentralized systems. And also in Norway, we do have a lot of people that own their own apartment. If you go to Sweden, more people are renting the apartment, and we also see more use of centralized system. For Sweden, we also see that it's more common to use extract air heat pumps. If you walk to Denmark, also there it's more apartments for rent than for owning yourself. But there has been a change in the last 4 to 5 years from having mostly centralized system and now more in the direction of more decentralized system. And the reason for this is told to be that people preferred more control of their own indoor air quality. The reasons for choosing the one or the other is often because of ownership, the possibility of maintenance. There could be some issues connected to access and to do follow-up and changing of filters and so on. And also for the tenants of not being so interested or able to do the necessary maintenance of the technical equipment. Let's talk also a little bit about kitchen ventilation. The ventilation rates necessary for kitchen ventilation is not too high, and they are originally based on a situation with cooker hood placed above the hot plate, close to a wall, and if possible, some side walls to ease the capture efficiency. We see that these rates are not necessarily enough for good extraction of pollutants. We have a trend that we use higher ventilation rates, at least in Norway. We see that the design of the cooker hoods are changing. And we also see that they are not necessarily placed at the wall. Maybe they are moved to a kitchen island and open space. We also know that the performance of the kitchen hood is connected to the placing of the kitchen, the possibility to open the window, and the placing of the doors. So all these things are influencing the new way of using the kitchen ventilation. I also want to mention that in the Scandinavian countries, we use electricity, hot plate, not gas burners as the standard solutions. The new kitchen ventilation, as you see, could be kitchen island, open space living, airflow rates that tend to be 2, 3, 4 times the ventilation rates of the whole apartment. We are not longer always seeing real hoods. They can be angled, and the new is now also the downdraft solutions. But maybe the one thing that is really up for discussion is this part of recirculation or not. This is not at the moment a solution that is allowed according to the building codes, but we see that this is occurring on the market, and we have a lot of discussions for the performance of these recirculating kitchen hoods. To mention about this, they are also they can reduce odor and particles, but at the same time, we are not extracting the moisture from the apartment. So if we are going to discuss these kind of solutions, we also need to have more control of the total moisture level in the apartment. We also see that there are some challenges according to noise level. Then we don't know exactly how long this will be used. And if there are large airflows, how do we handle the makeup air in a sufficient way? We like to know more about the different types of apartments, the size of the apartments, and the user profiles for each of these typical archetypes of apartments. Maybe there are different patterns and there are reasons that can help us to look closer into what is the standard cooking, what are the user habits of small apartments, more family-like apartments, and maybe the apartments for elderly with extra care. At the same time, we do need to have focus on moisture. And one of the things we are discussing is the bathrooms and the need of forced ventilation. The reason why we have this forced ventilation is connected to the possibility of opening a window for extra ventilation after showering or taking a bath. Very often in the urban dwellings, this possibility is no longer there. So then it has to be solved by the ventilation system. At the same time, we do have discussions if is it possible to use maybe little bit larger basic ventilation rate and do not have this forced ventilation. Then we can have different regulation of the ventilation strategies and not this forced and changing of the ventilation rates. At the same time, cold climate also is up for low relative humidity, especially in the winter times. Levels below 20% or down to 10% relative humidity is common in our winter months. So for some parts of the year, we would like a little bit extra into the apartment. Then at the same time, having small apartments and high ventilation rates, we see that people are having trouble with the feeling of dry air, and also some complaints for the materials, especially when we use a lot of wood in our apartments. We are also discussing the buffering effect, how much of the moisture can be buffered by the walls, the furnitures, and so on. And maybe we also can have new solutions for regeneration of moisture back to the apartment during the critical parts of the year. So what about the indoor temperature? Well, we see that well-insulated buildings, the temperature is more in the direction of 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. A little bit higher than before. The peculiar habit of the Scandinavian is that even if there's a cold climate, we need we would like to open the window and have a little bit colder temperature in our bedrooms at night. We use feather bed cover, but we are not necessarily able to change or separate the temperature between the different types of room. This will be more closely discussed later on today. But the bedroom is not necessarily only a bedroom in urban apartments. They are also up for all other activities during the day. Gaming room, playroom, in these days also home office. What we also see as a new trend is the use of information back to the user of the apartment through apps and cloud-based systems. Until some years ago, this was not available, but now the smartness and the apps is a common solution and wanted solutions, and especially for the private-owned homes. It's a little bit different for the apartment buildings and public-owned apartment buildings compared to the more commercial buildings like schools and office buildings, which has a more advanced building management system, but we are moving in this direction. Yeah. One last thing is the discussion of not only energy efficient, but also the focus on power, power peaks, how can we lower them, power shaving and shifting. We do have already some regulation in Sweden for maximum installed power. We don't have it in Norway yet, but we have it up for discussion. Yeah. We have an upcoming new research project that is going to look more into this healthy, energy efficient urban home ventilation topic, to look at user profiles and archetypes, advanced residential exposure studies to combine with this cookerhood problems and issues, to study more in depth the moisture, ventilation, and building physics. And then after some years, we hope to present some good recommendations and new aspects. Yeah, we also need to be aware of upgrading, not only focus on the new buildings if we really mean something with the sustainable neighborhoods. That's it.